Okay, so good afternoon everybody, and thank you very much for joining. I introduce myself to those I don't know yet. My name is Silvia Scalia, and I am the coordinator of the ECR initiative here in Italy. Here with me there is Andrea Fossa. Andrea is a consultant. He is an expert in supply chain management, and he collaborated with ECR Italy on different projects. Andrea is also the founder of Green Router. Green Router is a managerial tool for measuring carbon footprint across the supply chain, and it is also the engine inside our tool Ecologistico. As I have already said, some other colleagues will join. At the moment we have connected Fritz from ECR Netherlands, Anna from Russia, Thomas from Czech Republic, and Michael from Coca-Cola on behalf of ECR Austria. So thank you for joining. I suggest that we keep the question for the last part of our meeting, but if in the meanwhile you have something to tell us, please let us know with the chat. The aim of this conference today is to share with you the content of our activities in the area of environmental sustainability and green logistics. And in particular, we will present today Ecologistico. Ecologistico is a web tool which we have developed in collaboration with Green Router, and mainly with the aim of providing support to companies that are interested in understanding and simulating CO2 emission across their supply chains. This is one of the activation project proposal that the ECR community is evaluating. In favor of Michael, the activation projects are initiatives that are conducted at a national level, but which could grow at an international one thanks to the collaboration within the ECR network. I had the chance to briefly tell about this project in Brussels during our last ECR community meeting. Some ECR colleagues were interested in learning more about it, and this is the first step after our meeting in Brussels. Here is the agenda of our call. I will start by introducing the context and the reasons why, as ECR Italy, we have been working on environmental sustainability, and also how we got to Ecologistico. And then I will pass over to Andrea, who will briefly recall the background and the challenges that the climate change is posing to the companies. He will also show you what Ecologistico is and how it works with the demo. At the end, there will be time for asking questions, and at the same time, we would like to get your feedback and your comments to understand if there is a similar need in your country, and if it might be interesting for you to work together to develop a common similar initiative in your country. So let's start from the reasons why in ECR Italy we have been working on environmental sustainability issues. Sustainability is a more and more important topic both for consumers and for our member companies. Consumers' attention and personal commitment to climate change and environmental problems is rising significantly. And consumers are also very interested in what companies are doing to tackle climate change. And this influences also their shopping behavior and the brand and the store loyalty. Also, European institutions and international organizations like, for example, the United Nations, have set clear targets for emissions reduction. Andrea will shortly come back to this point. The fast-moving consumer goods company as well, they have set and publicly stated their own targets. They have done that also inside the Consumer Goods Forum, subscribing resolutions and the commitments around environmental sustainability. Logistic people have to be aware of the key role that they can play as leader and active players of change on environmental sustainability. The most advanced companies are already convinced that emissions reduction will soon become the urgency for the sector and the obsession of all the supply chain directors. But most probably there is much to do, still much to do for many companies, also in terms of awareness and especially at local level. As ECR in Italy and all around Europe, we can play a role here. We can support companies in the implementation, in developing new competencies for supply chain managers, and in creating awareness around these topics. Here are just some examples that I wanted to show you of how companies are engaging in sustainability. They are setting concrete targets and they are reporting their achievements. These are the actions reported in the climate change booklet of the Consumer Goods Forum. In this slide, there are the main projects we have worked or we are working on as ECR Italy in our supply agenda. I would like to rapidly have a look at them together. The Logistic Atlas, it is a map of the main warehouses and distribution centers in Italy. We developed this tool to support companies to identify potential partners to start a collaboration with in the area of asset sharing and transport sharing. Then there is the work we did on food waste prevention and food waste management. And intermodability, this is the name of our project on multimodal transportation to transfer goods from road to rail through a business model based on the bundling of flows coming from different companies. And finally, we analyzed the cost of the order to delivery process to identify the reordering mode which minimizes the cost for all the parties involved, working on the dimension of the order. Well, all these projects were not born as a part of a bigger project called sustainability, but as activities which can reduce costs and increase the process efficiency. But for sure, they all bring important benefits in terms of emissions reduction. And somehow, sustainability has become a sort of fil rouge for most of our supply-side projects, and also an indicator to measure the results of those projects. And the idea of measuring is also at the heart of Ecologistico. Ecologistico was born for two main reasons. On the one hand, we wanted to support companies in understanding what it means to measure the climate impact of logistics, to understand what is the current company impact and what is the effect of a set of actions that the company can do in the area of transport and warehousing. So it is about developing knowledge and awareness. On the other hand, we are convinced that the supply chain managers can play and should play a leadership role in this area. They have a central key role to play. This is not about putting into action the input received from the company, but really leading the change, starting from a clear understanding of the concrete options, of the levers that they have in their hands. This also through the capacity of measuring the effect of a set of possible actions. So the first step we took was a training course where we met several companies, and in particular we met CSR and supply chain managers. And during those trainings we went through definitions, regulations, standards, methodologies for measuring the climate impact. And we discussed the possible actions to reduce emissions. After that, we decided then to take a step further, and we developed a concrete support, a web tool that the companies can use to get acquainted with measurement. This by using their own company data. We will see it in a while, but before showing the tool, we would like to spend a few words to describe the context and also the challenges for companies. So, Andrea, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. And very briefly, we just describe what Silvia has already, let's say, introduced. One point is, why do we talk about mainly carbon footprint? Because basically it is more than 50% of the ecological footprint as stated from the Global Footprint Network. So it's always been considered a very relevant indicator of what is the impact on the world biocapacity. You see on the left of the graph, basically since the mid of the 70s, the world is using more biocapacity than it produces. So basically we are consuming the world resources faster than they can regenerate. And if you see the blue part at the bottom, which is a big part, is carbon footprint, and is considered the biggest impact because of human activities. On the right-hand side, you see a graph, which is very simple. It's from NASA, from the US, and it's saying how much has increased temperature, but also concentration. And the CO2 concentration basically has always increased over the last 1,000 years, but the point is it has increased dramatically in few decades, and mainly due to human activity. So this is why the problem is coming, and temperature increase is also accelerating as from recent data. This is why there are so many attention to this. You see in this slide basically where we are is EU. EU has always been a very good leader in these kind of activities and the policies. Kyoto Protocol basically was signed by EU and a few other big countries, not US, not China, mainly because of competitive reasons. But in 2016, on November the 4th, it became effective, the Paris Agreement. This agreement was signed 1 year earlier, but it needed 55% of nations representing at least 55% of world emissions in order to be effective. And it has become in October when European Union and other big countries signed, basically USA and China signed in September. So basically now it is in place. Even if, as you might have read in yesterday G7 meeting of the Energy Ministry, the US didn't want to sign for a, let's say, written agreement again, a statement. But the point is we are in Europe and the target is very clear. China stated recently they want to go on, and they probably consider this a competitive subject where to work on, apart from environmental problems they do have in their country. And the new targets are very clear. You see in red minus 40% by 2030. There is already stated for 2020, meaning 20% renewable energy, 20% efficiency, and 20% better use of the emission, reduction of the emission. So this is the big target, but they are becoming 40, 27, 27 by 2030. And this is even more aggressive by 2050. So if you see a split, this data comes from the EU site, if you see basically the transport line, every sector is of course in charge, power by definition, industry by definition, and the residential service, but also transport. And you see the difficulty of reducing emission from transport, because until 2030 they are considered, they are estimated growing because of demand from both passengers and goods to be shipped everywhere, but they have to be reduced over time. And the estimates are that by 2050 they will represent 50% of the total, while today transportation is less than, say, 32-33% of total. And the biggest slice is residential emission and of course power generation. So this focus on transport, including of course goods transport, is very important and is a key for considering also some other documents. This slide we just simply synthesize what the Consumer Goods Forum produced as a document in 2012. And basically they made two big assumptions. One is follow the main protocol around, which is GHG, Greenhouse Gases Protocol, which basically says, as you see on the right, you have to divide in three scopes. One is your direct emissions, meaning if you burn some fuel, if you emit directly because you use refrigerants or things like that, is your direct emission. Scope 2, which is again considered almost, let's say, compulsory, you have to report every year for your indirect emission when considering electricity, steam or heat, because basically you buy these things, but they derive from emissions, basically from combustion or similar things. The scope 3 is what else? So whatever is outside your perimeter of your company activities, you can of course report, but this was not considered until this document, very important. But as you can see in the yellow highlighted part, the third party is recommended that includes all transactions also in transport and warehousing. Why? Because as we know, there is a high level of outsourcing, but the level of outsourcing is clearly guided and influenced by customers, in this case not final consumers, but the big companies. So the recommendation is very clear. Please include logistics and transportation inside the GHG protocol reporting. And this is very interesting because I agree that physically speaking, as far as I know the logistic market, both in Italy but also abroad, the customers got a big influence, especially big customers. The fourth background is very important, is we of course talking about and final consumers, we're talking about regulation, but also investors are very worried. Basically what they want is to monitor what companies are doing in terms of global warming management and risk management. And there is this famous association which collects, you can see, about $100 trillion of global investment, more than 800 investors. It's called Carbon Disclosure Project, CDP, and it's basically financed by big investors like insurances, let's say funds in general, investment funds from any kind of country or religion or whatever. And they monitor every year more than 5,000 companies, quoted companies, asking basically data on emissions and on about their kind of management for risk and what are their targets. You can register on this site, is cdp.net, and it's very interesting to see how big companies have already formalized and also allowed to publish their own emission in the scope 1 and scope 2, and they disclose what they are going to do and their targets as well. So there's a very big movement going on. As you can see, CDP was born in 2002, now it's 15 years, and is increasing every year. And one of the recommendations they set last year was, now scope 1, scope 2 are under control or at least monitored, please go through scope 3. So basically your supply chain before your company and until your final customer. This is no surprise. Basically they do the same, and there are very famous examples of companies that show in their CSR reports, corporate social responsibility reports, how they behave, and also they estimate emissions from raw materials till the disposal of the end goods. So this is a clear trend as well. More important for the balance sheet of companies is carbon pricing. This is a study from the World Bank, very recent, and basically you can see many colors around the world. This is where the study indicated how many countries have set programs, and basically there are two types of programs. One is carbon exchange programs. So basically in Europe we have ETS, which is a very nice, say theoretically a fantastic program. Then the problem is pricing, because 1 ton of CO2 is paid only 5-6 euros, and the idea was to set a cap on emissions and to make companies exchange, large emitters, to exchange these tons on certificates. So if you were reducing, you got credits. If you cannot reduce or basically exceed what is your cap, you can buy on the market certificates. And it's working, but the price is low due to many factors, and this is affecting not so much in the end what the original idea was. But if you see the yellow part of the world, which is picked, like from China to Brazil to Canada to Turkey and so on, these are countries that are seriously considering introducing emission trading scheme as well. The blue part is where there is a carbon tax. And the carbon tax is very well spread. You can see also Chile and South Africa, but the number under the carbon tax is very different. You see countries where it is only 1-2 euros per ton, but I always mention Sweden, where there's about 136 euros per ton, which would make a big difference for big emitters. So these kind of policies are growing. The study shows that in this year it should be around 40 schemes under evolution or in place. And not surprisingly, what you see here now is what big companies are doing. There is a study from the CDP I told you before, and the numbers you see in the bars are the pricing, internal pricing the big companies are giving to a ton of CO2. And you can see the range is very spread, but you see at the bottom already consumer staples is in there, and consumer companies are starting to price what is the cost of, and let's say, theoretical, but not so far away, I believe, carbon tax on their balance sheet. So basically, I think the idea is to introduce the cost of carbon inside the business cases and inside the risk assessment methodologies. And the price, of course, is still very variable, but you can see it's at least 5 to 10 euros, and then it can grow a lot. Okay. So these are the backgrounds. Having said that, the point is we're talking about logistics, we're talking about supply chain managers, and they are starting to be, let's say, really involved, not only by talking about that, but also with MBOs. And so they have to start learning how to reduce emissions. And first of all, as Silvia correctly said first, we just said, why do they know enough? So the point is, where do you start from? And basically you start from education. So there are many solutions, we just listed a few of them: driving style, modern transfer, different kind of fuels, lighting technology rather than refrigerants or whatever. The point is how many managers and their co-workers really know about the impact, how much they are aware of what is the right solution or the possible solution given the budget and so on. So the point, we simply said, okay, we can do courses, nice courses with people attending and so on, but probably we need also to make people have become, let's say, used to have this kind of information. And because if you ask a manager who is not typically, let's say, well trained on the subject, and if you ask how much CO2 do you emit in a 300 kilometer trip of a Euro 5 big truck, the answer is not always there. I mean, it's very difficult to know unless they have been trained or they know what you're talking about. So what we thought, basically we said, okay, we use a web tool, a simple tool in theory. In reality it's complex because the calculation, the algorithm behind is quite complex, but we want to get managers and their co-workers used to know these kind of variables, these kind of parameters. So the idea is to give companies and their managers an understanding and possibly simulating what is going to happen, both in transportation and warehousing. And the simulation is, of course, a mathematical simulation, but based on real data that you insert. So basically you say, I'm working on a certain kind of line with transportation. What if I change the kind of truck? What if I change the fuel? What if I saturate better and so on? Okay, we'll see in the demo shortly. The point is, we are not going to solve the problem. We design the project as an educational gym, we call, because we want them to do the first step. The first step is to get acquainted with parameters, calculation, and reporting. The system can report transportation under the 16258 standard, which is basically approved since 3 years in Europe. And what they do is they understand what I said before, what is the real emission, what is the kind of impact, and they do also with the logic of so what. So basically the simulation, as we'll see, is what if I change something in my warehouse, what happens, okay? We try to be very simple in the data structure, because to have all the parameters in place would take 20 parameters, which shortly say reduce them to about 8 to 10. So basically you will have origin, destination, distance, kind of transport, and so on. And we also exploited what's called the atlas that Silvia was talking about before. Basically the 1,000 something more nodes of the supply chain in Italy basically are all the big destinations and all the large warehouses from both logistics supplier and the producers, including transit points where relevant or where available. So this is a nice say synergy, because when you will see, it's easy also to map what you're doing and to start with the program. As I said before, we included simulation. On the left-hand side, you see warehouses. So basically, you can simulate on the lighting. So you have a different mix of lighting systems, and what if you change, improve, and so on. The same for refrigerants. Of course, you know that there are some very old, say, equipment and installations, but the more interesting trends are towards ammonia and CO2 systems. And again, you do a what if in this case. The third one regards intralogistics and basically high frequency battery charger and lithium batteries. And the last one is about photovoltaic effect. So what does it mean to have a photovoltaic system on your roof? And we did also based upon latitude, so it's a bit more, let's say, customizable. On the right hand side, you see the transportation ones. So it's based on the type of truck, small, big, and whatever. Of course, the fuels, and so we included also liquefied natural gas, which is quite fashionable at the moment due also to European projects, and also because large trucks are finally available on the market for with more than 400 horsepower, so they can also operatively be very competitive. Saturation, the last two, then you have empty returns, which is a very difficult parameter, but the point is you have to take this into account, because if you don't consider empty returns, the emissions due to that empty road will be in any case emitted and charged to the full, let's say, lines that you occupy with your transportation, so you have to be aware of that. And the last one is technology, meaning engine technology, like you come from Euro 3, Euro 4, Euro 5, and whatever. There is one missing here, which is a modal shift from road to rail, which is also included. Okay. So I know that I gave you a lot of information, a lot of concept, but basically what we want to do now, I think, no, we have to, sorry. We want to go to the demo.
We are going to show a demo. Do you have any question in the meanwhile?
Can you make me the presenter? This one.
Jennifer, would you
Yes.
like to say something?
No.
Your message. No, this was a mistake.
Sorry.
Now we are showing on the screen the demo, the screen of the demo. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep.
I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to shift. Okay, so basically this is the real system, and the demo is just because we introduce, of course, some data which are reasonable, but just to show you what's going on. The person who is in charge of say, who's going under the training enters, and you see this first, let's say, screenshot, which basically is a wizard. Just to show you, I close the wizard, and you see this is the real web tool, so you have a lot of information. You can map the network, you can do in single data insertion, and also both warehousing and transportation. You can do reporting, and you can do simulation, as I said. But we thought about a wizard because we wanted to make simple for companies and for people to learn and to start. So what you do is very easy. First you do Atlas, meaning that you map your nodes, because we are talking about a network, a logistic network. So we need to have the nodes, which basically help, if you go on the left, to know what is the detail of consumption. So basically, you will see in a moment, we detail what the emissions come from for the single node. And on the right hand, we can, after we inserted the nodes, insert the trips. So basically, from end to end, also with some intermodal options, so you can step by a rail or whatever is, say, intermediate step. Okay, so this is what we are thinking. And once you inserted both nodes and transport, you can simulate, and we'll see what does it mean. Simulation we just mentioned before, but we will see some in practice. I just briefly talked about what's at the bottom. On the left you have got a simple manual, okay, simple but long, because we want it to be very clear. On the right you have a list of what data you need in order to start properly and to have the correct data. In reality, the system provides you standard data if you don't have precise data. So let's say if you don't have the weight, you will indicate you have light, medium, or heavy goods. If you don't have the distance, the system calculates. If you have, let's say, if you don't know the Euro X for the truck, the system puts a Euro 4 by definition, and so on. But then most nicely is the central part at the bottom. You see know-how. What we did, and we'll see at the end, we collected a series of innovation, technologies, and experiences from both, let's say, suppliers, logistic operators, and we are collecting also from ECR companies. And we described in a very, let's say, simple but documented way what they are going, what are the solutions, and if the supplier of the logistic operator was to be mentioned formally, and many did, they had to show numbers, and let's say they have to formally say things and numbers and advantages and impact and so on. So this is the approach we use for the know-how, and this is going to increase over time. So if you all, I would start. So let's put Atlante in. What does it mean? You see, the wizard follows you, so drives you through leads you through the process. I'm sorry for the Italian, but of course we have no time to translate into English, but the system is already set to have multi-language, so this is not an issue. What they do is say, okay, you have to insert the nodes. You can use Atlas, you can use your own nodes, because of course you can use. And what happens is that you have a map going up. This is a simple map. You can click on the nodes you want, okay, and you have to say, okay, I like this to be done. So what we do is, sorry for that. You can see if I click on the numbers, I go through the map, okay, and so this is a very simple way of finding your nodes. And when I get a smaller part, these are all the nodes already. You see here a blue point. I click on the point, and this is a description of the node. And we say what is a warehouse, the owner, the surface, and also the category, meaning what is the temperature. I can add to my network, and you see on the right the description. Okay, and this is simple, and this comes from the Atlas. If I want to do a manual insert, I click on the right, and I code and describe what is the node. So basically, we did hopefully a GLN field for first, and this is something of course we like to have for both. You can describe magazzino di stabilimento, as you see here, is a plant warehouse. Then you can have a central warehouse, say local warehouse, transit point, sedi means distribution center, and cliente is the end customer. because of course we wanted also to give possibility to put inside end customers. And then you have to give a name, address, and town and province, and of course important is latitude and longitude. If you don't have them, you can see the system calculates for you. Okay, so this is quite easy also, and you can save or say, oh, forget, I didn't want to. Okay, so this is step for mapping your nodes and your network. Sorry. Okay. Now what you do is you insert, we did already. Okay. And then I say, okay, confirmation is done. You see the number here has become 13. Okay, so this is one more node mapped on the system. We start with the mapping the consumption of the node. We go into this. For, say, practical reason, we said, okay, maximum free number is the number maximum you can map, but of course it's a parameter. Okay, so let's put whatever is. The first one is basically a distribution center. Sorry, because it's not my PC. But you select one, you go on and say, okay, consumption. For each node, now you have to insert your information. You can go next step. Okay. What asking you is basically asking here surface. So let's put, I don't know, 15,000 square meters. Here is asking capacity in terms of storage. We will probably add the capacity, let's say also volumes in terms of, volume that went through 1 year of activity in terms of pallets. So we can say 15,000, about 14,000 capacity, and you can state the temperature. So we could say 4 degrees is a good temperature, okay, for fresh food, or we can use 20, as I said before. This is not a big issue. This is important because, of course, you have in the end also statistics. The first consumption parameter is consuming electricity, means electrical consumption. So you have to say how many kilowatts per hour you have used in 1 year, and this could be, I don't know, 1,200,000. But also you have to state already if you have some say, we call autoconsumo, meaning that you produce and consume by yourself, so it's self-consumption on the site, typically from a photovoltaic system, or you have other local system for producing, and we could say that we have, I don't know, something. Okay, this is important because it creates a delta of emission due to what you produce yourself and what you buy on the market, because as you know, each country has got a certain percentage of renewable and the fossil fuel for production of electricity, so you know what did you bought. Then this is interesting, of course, from a logistic part, is also the split among consumptions. So movimentazione means handling, refrigeration, and then is, okay, refrigerazione, illuminazione is lighting, and other. You can modify, this is a basic, and it's easy, you see, to modify. You move your cursor like this, okay, maybe refrigeration from this is too low because we put, I don't know, 34%, and of course the system doesn't like less than 100 or more than 100, so there is also check, okay, you see here. So basically I have to sum up, I have to do online, live, what is my problem, 24, 68, 52, we have to put 18 here, I believe, yeah. And basically, no, he doesn't like one more. I need help from Silvia.
Okay.
Maybe 28. Say 28, that was it. Okay. So once you specify how you use your consumption, the other parameter you can change is the electricity mix. Basically, you have to say this is rinnovabili, means renewables, and this is the Italian mix at the moment, but you can use your own. So basically, this could be due to either you buy specific renewable electricity from a specific provider, for the free market it happens, or you have your own production from fossil or whatever, so you can change the mix. mix, okay, whatever it is. And also, then you have to list the fuels. Combustibili means fuels, and you see these are in English, so it's easy. You can use whatever it is, from cooking coal to CNG to whatever. So we say we use CNG. The parameters used could be kilowatt, liters, ton, depending on what you have as a number. We could use, in this case, tons, whatever it is. We just do as exercise, okay? And then we go on. If we want some, if you have also, I don't know, diesel or whatever, we can add as many as we want. And the same applies to refrigerants. Again, you have a list of refrigerants. Unfortunately, the list is very, very technical and very long, but it's very important. And you see that all these are to be mapped, because the point with the refrigerants is that their impact, especially the old ones, could be 2,000, 3,000 times the CO2 equivalent, okay? And then you can save, and I say, okay, I want to save on the system. And you see here is become 2 out of 3, okay? The same you do on transportation. We try to be quick. I know that is at the beginning boring. You can see here I can have a direct trip or intermodal by train or by sea. We try to simplify, even if the system can manage also less than truckload and so on. Let's do a direct trip. What you do is basically, again, select. We can find at the beginning warehousing from basically plant. So I say, okay, I start from plant 1 and I got, sorry, okay, it's the central, because this is a subset, okay. I go to 1 and I add, you see, sorry, okay, I add the first node, and then I want also to put my destination, so I can put another sort of, okay, destination. Again, I got a distribution center and I put in my node. So basically this function is to do by hand, but the insert of what are the nodes. Then we have to do the number of trips, let's put 10, and the average weight in tons, which could be, I don't know, 17, okay. What you do is then you verify that the first node is correct and the destination node is correct. So you check out the sequence, you add, you verify distance. The system has calculated by itself distance. But you say, okay, we go on. What I can do here is to move from the standard. You see from the first one here is kind of a truck, so big truck, diesel engine, Euro 4, saturation percentage calculated on weight, not on volume, because this is the key point, and empty returns. I can modify, so I change, I don't know, diesel to LNG, okay, and of course I can do for each one of them. When I'm satisfied, I change, and I go on, and this is the report you get. I always go the other way. So basically, you know what are the kilometers for the 10 trips, the CO2, and the emission per kilometers, and then you have the difference. Of course, you can do also one more thing, which is this one. You produce a report according to the standard, okay? Which of course is a basic report, is approved as a kind of reporting. The tool is approved by SGS. So basically the standard requires that you should describe what have you done, and the results, the one you see here, risultati, have to be in 4 types of results, both emissions and consumption, and they have to be split into well-to-wheel and tank-to-wheel. Means that well-to-wheel is from the extraction of the oil till the effective burning, tank-to-wheel from when you basically fill in the tank to when you burn it. And the same applies to energy. Why so? Because basically you have to understand that in the system, the objective is always to reduce energy, and then it's eventually also to reduce the consumption per kilometer and so on. So they always want to show the 2 things together. Okay. Now Silvia helps me.
And this is compliant with the
yes. Sorry. You can see later. Okay, these are all what is required, because basically you have to state that you see here the EN 16258 standard requires that for each of the 4 possible trips, basic trips, so road, rail, so stradale is road here, ferroviario means rail, navale is ship, and aereo of course is air. You have to specify for each of the parameters on the left how you get the calculation, so it was a default, calculated, or a real parameters. And in the end, we have also to state every time we use parameters that are standard, what are the basically the sources. Okay, this is for every report. We just close this. Okay, we go back to Ecologistico. Okay, you can save again your. In this case, you save onto the system. Okay, and you finish with your trip. Now, what happens? I got some trips. I can simulate the trips. Basically, I can do what I told you before. So we can use, I don't know, a simple one. Carburanti means that I go, this adds to the list. If I want to add also saturation, I can simulate the two together. So first fuel and then saturation. Then I go, we just go for one because it takes too much time, but basically what happens is that the system gets the trips you already loaded and allows you to move and say, okay, for this part of the trips, you have 89% of distance by diesel and 11% by liquefied natural gas. What you do, if you do here, I don't know, let's say 10%, so calculation for me is easy, okay, and I go on and say, okay, you calculate for me the impact. Basically, what does the system? It takes the basic data you have in, it substitutes with a simple algorithm or more complex, depending on the simulation, what you have done, and you see at the top, it says, okay, shifting to 90% of LNG, you reduced your CO2 by a certain amount, and this is, on the right hand is the difference in the CO2, let's say, accumulated. Why? Because you have in step 1 of 2, now we do the second step, which was saturation. Let's put this kind of, so we have 63%, let's say that we can reach 75%, which is a lot, so it's a bit theoretical, but again, there is a calculation, and the final report says, okay, you gained a lot from LNG, less from the second, but in the end, the calculation says, okay, you gained a lot, and this is, sorry, what happens, it shows you the total kilometers. Why there are reduced kilometers? Because you increase saturation, so the system calculates that you do one more trip or something like that. You increase, of course, you reduce emissions. This is again the split. The last line is emission per kilometer, which is also typically used. Okay, and then you have a split between the modal shift and whatever of your, and you can have a report or save the simulation. The idea is always to save simulation. I'm going very quick, Silvia, just to go to notes. Notes you can have, we'll never learn, whatever you want to charge or to change. Let's say that we do, I don't know, photovoltaic, okay, in some way. We take a list, maybe from this, okay, and then we have to say, okay, these are the data you put in. I confirm this mix, fine. Now I want you to say what you're going to do. I'm doing a photovoltaic, and we put some simple specifications. So which kind of equipment? So impianto inclinato means that the panels are 45% degrees on the roof. It could be another percentage, or it could be flat. Okay, let's put whatever. The surface typically should be less than the roof, and we have a check on this. And autoconsumo means you consume that, and it's okay. You basically give your information, a superficie superiore del sito. Okay, I made a mistake, so he wants me to go back.
The roof was smaller.
Yes, probably the roof, I didn't see it, so there's a problem with that. Okay, see, we want to go on, otherwise we make, okay, we go on. The check is always there, and basically this is a report similar to one you see. You see on the left-hand side, you see consumption, so it doesn't change because you only produce a different kind of electricity. What doesn't change is emissions. So from 1778 you go to 1775 tons because of this small plant we put on the roof. Okay, and this is again of your total handling, refrigeration, lighting, and so on. Where is the difference? And of course, in that case, it was very small. Okay, and then of course you can save onto the system. You name the simulation, whatever is, I don't know, we call it ECR Community, and you save into your range of simulation, so you can always have for your usage later on. Okay, so this is what the system does interactively, and I promise I finish in a few minutes, but the nice part that we think is was very happy to do this part. This is a list of best practices. We start with the ECR members.
So member companies.
The one you see here, I just scroll down what is in it. This is from San Pellegrino, which is a Nestle Waters company. Then you go down to warehouse, and you have Jungarisch giving us nice information and nice simulation. This is a logistic operator for roof for photovoltaic, and this is a big plant for refrigerated goods, minus 25 degrees. Is a very nice plant with ammonia refrigeration system. This is from Osram Ledvan's case for the LED, and this is another nice case of solar tube, means solar tubes. These are sort of periscopes that work the other way around. They introduce light inside the closed rooms or warehouses, and they are very effective. And then we're talking about transport of many different things. So I show you a few of them. Transportation is, of course, a partnership with the supplier. You see also the pictures of this LNG fleet. They made already in February more than 1,400 trips, 600,000 kilometers, and we got the real data, so we can have in the end all the description. Just to show you here, we had the calculation, so we basically had 12% decrease of emissions based on real consumption, and 64 tons of CO2 on these trips. More interesting, you see also described the fuel system, so the distribution point, they made a special one. So we try to be very fact-oriented and to be very complete also, okay? So what you do, you click back and you go, and I don't know, if you want to see this solar tube, there is a description of the technology, a description of the applications. This is a simulation of what would happen in a 10,000 square meter warehouse, and this is what will be your consumption if you introduce in a LED plant, so a warehouse already with LED system, solar tubes over the most interesting period of the year. So I think this warehouse was simulated in Milan. You got more than 50% of saving in the lighting adopting this kind of technology, and this was certified by the tools and of course available for that.
Yeah, the idea behind this repository is to show the options that are possible to take, and also the savings in terms of CO2 emission that can be achieved with examples coming from our member companies or coming from providers which have innovative solutions. This is the idea behind this set of best practices.
Yeah, I just read the titles here. There is LNG's trucks, and we made a good description of what's compressed natural gas and liquefying natural gas, what are the problems, what are the opportunities, and we engaged the Iveco, which is a leader in this kind of field. We have a very nice example from France, from bio LNG, and again it's described how you can do from, let's say, Paris town and all the, let's say, dirty water system they use to produce biomethane, and from that to produce liquefied natural gas. Then there is a very nice system of electrical trucks, of course medium trucks, medium to small, but they have 12 to 16, you see here, full truck, and they go today in many cities, Milan, Florence, whatever, to do night deliveries. They are fully electric, they have 150 kilometers of autonomy, and they are working, and very nicely, basically we have again the real consumption in electricity terms. Okay, intermodality is the project that Silvia described. Aerodynamics is a very nice study about improvement of penetration of trucks in the air, because it's important. You can reduce from 3 to 10% the consumption just by adopting nice, let's say, solutions that the system describes. Then we're talking about wheels, and of course the problems you have with resistance to the wheel running and so on, the Euro norms. So this is important because not everybody knows that from CO2 emission standpoint, Euro 4 is already an excellent solution, and then Euro 5 is a little worse than Euro 4 because of the PM performance. So Euro 5 and Euro 6 are far better from PM particulate emissions point of view, but they are similar to Euro 4 in CO2. And then we have, of course, examples of what does it mean empty returns. Driving style, we have again Iveco gave us what they do and on their customers, and Falcon, which is a big logistic operator, it describes their own internal school and internal courses. Truck saturation, the one of the Silvia we're talking about. And also we had this case from Eni, which is a big oil company, who developed a second generation biodiesel. Basically this diesel is a commercial one. It's got 15% of biodiesel in it. You probably know that the diesel you have in the EU is almost everything. You can have only 7% of biodiesel, because more than this creates problem to the engines. Eni, together with the Finnish company and another American company, developed this new biodiesel. It's called green diesel, and they can go up to 100% in the engine. So these are all new novelties already on the market, ready to know, and of course we hope to increase the number over time. This is what the idea behind the repository was this one, okay? And Silvia can describe also what they're doing about it with other members. Okay?
Yeah, we're engaging also other companies. We are in contact with Carlsberg, with Carrefour, to ask them to let us know what they are doing in this field and measure it with a common metrics and tell about also the stories of this improvement. The idea is to show best practices that can support other companies to evolve. So I would suggest that we stop here talking, Andrea, and just we would like to have your question, your feedbacks on this, and we are happy to answer your question if you have any. Don't be shy.
Destroy them.
Hi Sylvia, thank you. It's Declan from ECR Ireland here.
Hi Declan.
Hi. What is the how many users are there in the system?
20 users.
We presented this tool last month at the beginning of March, and we had I think about 80 companies that have learned about it, and they have entered the systems. The current number, I think there are about 40 companies using the tool at the moment.
And how many warehouses are plotted on the map?
Well, the map was already there. The Logistic Atlas is a tool we had already developed here in ECR Italy. It was a previous study, and we have mapped and insert in the map this information. The users can input their own data, their own logistic points, but we do not see the new point. This is just in their system to start simulating a set of activities starting from those points. So they are not adding in the system new warehouses, new logistic points. They use, if they want, new points for making their simulations.
Okay, thanks. How long does it take to develop the logistical system?
Let's say that, okay, we had already in place the original tool, so of course we had to adapt it to simplify something and also to use a lot of, I mean, the wizard was completely new from the original system. But let's say that we had 3 to 4 months in the end, no more than this, because of course we worked also a lot on what was already there. So simulation was improved and made more complex, let's say, but the basic calculation and all the database and management of the users were already there. So I would say that the development was this. Adaptation, hopefully if it's not a big graphic issue, we should be, apart from, of course, there will be specification, because if you use in different countries, you need to put other setup, let's say, basic parameters like electricity or so on. You have to work a little bit on that, but I don't see.
Yeah, we started from an existing tool that is called the Green Router, and that was developed by Andrea for providing a complete service to those companies who want to measure and report on a continuous way their CO2 emissions. And we started from that tool to create a new one that is called Ecologistico. Green Router is the engine inside Ecologistico, but with a different aim, that is educational. So we want that logistic people use Ecologistico to practice, to start understanding what it means to measure, what are the parameters, what are the options that they have to reduce the CO2 emissions. So the two tools have different aims. Okay.
Yes, and yes, thanks. Yes, and does each user pay a license fee to use Ecologistico, or is it free to use?
No, because this is paid by the membership fee of the ECR companies. So our members do not pay for using Ecologistico.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it possible to see some demo or to learn more about that?
Well,
because this was, you know, quite quick overview. So if there is a chance either to share the presentation or to have an access to some demo part.
As long as you like Italian language, of course.
Thomas.
Yeah, but you know, just to have an idea, and maybe for me would be quite good to communicate with my board, because this is a topic we are just opening also through the Lean and Green, and I can see that this is a very good approach, not just for the reporting, but as Sylvia mentioned, for education and awareness about this topic. So something which might be shared would be very helpful for me.
Thomas, for sure we can share this presentation and probably use some screenshot from the tool to make it easier
at least,
to understand.
yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
No problem in giving you a demo access, but it would probably be
Italian.
difficult for you to understand how to use.
But yeah, let's say that it's true also, even if many terms are still in English, because I mean many definitions and you see the procedure and so on. So I think there is if you want, no problem. I mean, it's just
So you will have your access.
Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you. Do you cooperate with some universities or some other subjects on development of that, and or this is purely green router and ECR activity?
In this case, it is purely green router and the ECR.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
And Sylvia, what's the feedback from the 40 users? You say it was it's launched really to be educational and to guide, I suppose, decision making. Is it changing how these companies approach their logistics? Is it becoming a valuable tool for the companies?
Yeah, it's probably too early for saying this. We got very positive feedbacks during the event, and by the first users that entered the systems, we will be able to give a final answer on your question in the next month. We are contacting them to understand how easy, how difficult it is to use it, to improve it step by step. What we are doing is also contacting companies, because we are sure that many companies have a lot of experiences to tell in this area. And the idea of making the repository richer and richer, this also helps us to share, to disseminate the knowledge around these topics.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and I can appreciate why there are so many variables, because it's very difficult to benchmark any supply chains because they're so complex and every single one is unique, and hence all the variables that you have in. I understand. Now, I've been trying to grasp the answer to this question, so I'm going to ask you it. For Thomas or for myself, let's say I would like to develop an English version for Irish companies to consider using. How do I go about it?
Yeah, I just want to add one point to what Sylvia said about the user. Of course, the first objective is to make people that use it to realize that the complex is not an easy subject, but at the end
Correct.
there are practical solutions. So the typical assumption, when you see I see a lot of life cycle assessment where transportation is normally, let's say, is too small or let's say ignored. Why? Because it's a complex issue. But
yes.
if you take into consideration that we are not talking only about CO2, we are talking now to particulate, NOx, and so on, which are very, very important from a health point of view. So people have to start understanding what they are doing and familiarize, we say in Italian, but let's say get
familiar,
get acquainted with the things they are doing. I can tell you an experience from Green Router. We are doing the job for a big retail company in Italy. They got something like 44 distribution centers, and they are starting to realize how big they are, how much they emit, how much road they have to go through in order to improve the performance. And this is the big value I see from the standpoint, because the leaders probably don't need too much this information, even if, as Sylvia said before, what I also see from companies is they are asking for education of the co-workers. So we are also saying, if you want to come to the company and using Ecologistico as a tool, while we do a half a day, 1 day training, and this I think people like this. Okay?
Yeah.
So
this is something that we are offering to our company. So start using Ecologistico together with a half a day training session offered by us, and the use of the tool, how to say, side by side for the first steps together.
Brilliant. So coming back to my question, what should I do, Sylvia?
So you are my last slide, next steps. I think that this call was aimed at sharing the content of Ecologistico a little bit more in detail than we did in Brussels, and I think this is done. The next step I see from my side is that a significant, a realistic number of national initiatives confirm their interest to go on together on something that is around this proposal. But before, so in the next days, I'd like to have your feedbacks, your comments on this. What we can do is, if there is an interest from 2, 3 national initiatives, probably we have to define together the project scope, exactly what we want to achieve. Is that a training course? Is that an English version of Ecologistico? Is that a national version of the tool in multi-language? And we have to understand for sure with Andrea what it means. That we need a little bit of analysis on what it means in terms of work on resources. And if there is an interest, we suggest that we work together as a work group of national initiative to develop together the action plan, the methodology. We define together the roles, the timings, and the resources that are necessary to achieve our goal. Does this answer?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, of course. Where I stand is I'm fascinated by your work, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that it's used as an educational tool, because you can only manage what you can measure, of course.
Yeah.
And there are so many supply companies involved in supply chain who are not measuring emissions and costs, energy costs, etc. I've always had trouble selling supply chain initiatives in Ireland for a couple of reasons. We're only a population of 5 million people, and we're an island that's very small. Most of our ambient product is imported. However, we now have Brexit, and Brexit is going to add supply chain costs to any imports, and all of a sudden there's going to be an awful lot more focus on logistics and on supply chain. So that is me predicting what will happen. I don't think the industry is aware of it yet. So on that basis, I'm very interested in a lot of new supply chain thinking and being prepared to offer this kind of expertise from ECR to Irish operations. And on that basis, I'm very interested in going forward with the project.
Great.
From my perspective, Tomasz Martok speaking, yeah, fully agree what was mentioned by Declan. We have no Brexit so far, so this is not the topic, but the key topic is that really we are starting with all this discussion regarding CO2 reduction and effectiveness of logistic linked to the CO2 emissions, and I really like the idea of the simulation and the tool showing possibilities, meaning not just reporting CO2, but really enabling to think about what if when we try to change something. So this is a great opportunity also for some collaborative approach, supplier with the retailer, supplier with the logistics service provider. So I really like that. And because of my resources, I definitely would like to have involved university to help me with this tool, which or with these activities. So we just need to agree how to manage that. But yeah, I'm really voting for that activity.
Thomas, I didn't say before because I don't want to say I'm from Milan Polytechnic, but I'm scientific director of the Observatory of Contract Logistics Observatory in Italy. So if we are talking about involvement or something like that, we can talk about this, okay? But to be honest, as Silvia said, this is an activity, Green Router and ECR, so he was not involved formally. Then if it is an issue, we can talk.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, feedbacks?
Hello, Michael Dannabauer from Austria speaking. Thank you for sharing this nice presentation. The tool looks really, really good. It's much more than I have expected. What I'm going to do now is to share the material with my colleagues from our organization, and I hope we can find a way to to deal with the language barrier, let's say, because it's as well maybe a showstopper for the Austrian organization. We need it as well in English at least. So definitely I appreciate this initiative, and it's fitting very well to our plans and what we are thinking about this topic, and it's fits very well to the future from my perspective.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Thomas speaking again. I think that we will need that in Czech finally. So the language needs to be fixed according to the demand on the local markets. But English as a first step is a must. That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. This is Anna. It's really interesting, although on Russian market maybe it's not the hot topic now for the supply chain, but I think our major international companies such as Coca-Cola on Russian market or Unilever will be very interesting, but I also voted for English version. I will spread the presentation among our participants, and yeah, we're going to keep in touch and looking forward the project.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you.
I was trying to record this session, so if I was successful, I will also share this link with you, and also with other colleagues of the other ECR national initiatives who could not join but maybe could be interested. So I will let you know if I could record. Sorry.
Absolutely, Sylvia, and I think this is also important for all the GS1 organizations with the sustainability plans to be aware about, at least about the approach in collecting the best practices in that area, because this is something where the transport and logistic team should be aware. I think that your approach is really great, also from that perspective, really mapping where are the opportunities and providing the calculation and get the real results of that. This is something which is unique. Yeah. Well, I haven't seen anything similar so far.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have done it. We are also running out of time, so just if you have any other questions, feedbacks you would like to send us in the next few days, we will be happy to receive and answer. I think we will also have the chance to discuss a little bit more also in Dublin during our next ECR community meeting. So we will be happy to hear from you and discuss this more during our next meetings.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thanks, Sylvia.
Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you for organizing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, Thomas.
Bye.